following program is suitable for all ages.
Buffone. A certain magic will always linger with the very name. It speaks of courage and fervor in the world's most brutal game. 55, worn by Doug Buffone, a Chicago Bear through and through. He demanded excellence of himself and anyone wearing navy blue.
You tell me what's going on. This is moronic. We're going to get our whipped all the way down the line. I want somebody to get kicked in the and get out there and play. You're getting paid to play this game. And play it right. I don't mind you getting beat. I got my whipped many times. But I tell you, I took somebody down with me. You are a professional team. Act like one, for God's sakes.
Football fans, this is Buffone 55, the John Buffone Show.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Buffone 55, a fast-paced approach to Chicago football analysis. I am your host, John Buffone. We got a good one for you today. The Bears coming off an impressive win over the Bengals last week. Can they keep the momentum going when they go to Detroit to take on the Lions indoors? We will get to that in just a second. But before we get this started, I'm going to throw it over to my producer, Aldo Gondina, to tell him how the show works. Aldo, explain how this all goes down.
It's pretty easy. 5 questions for you about the Bears, 5 questions for you about the Detroit Lions, and you have 55 seconds to respond to each question. The 5s, of course, are a tribute to number 55, Doug Buffone, your uncle, my childhood hero. And John, let me also add to your live listeners, if they are listening only live and want to kind of further their barroom experience, well, join us in the chat room. It's easy. Just go over to mixlr.com. You type into the search bar, Bears Barroom Radio, and you will be directed to the chat area. And if you subscribe to MixLR, you'll get alerts to when Buffone 55 and Bears Hour Live with Draft Dr. Phil are scheduled to go. And that's a good thing, especially if you want to interact with the fans of the show, who we affectionately refer to as barflies. John, before we begin, I got to tell you, Draft Dr. Phil Atoshin has been kidding me incessantly, saying that I, as producer, have been giving preferential treatment to Buffone 55. He's made up this story that I'm doing giveaways of Buffone 55 hoodies. I just have one question for you. What size hoodie do you wear?
Oh, I'm an XL, and let me tell you that Buffone 55 hoodie goes really well with the Buffone 55 mittens and tassel cap. The entire ensemble is fantastic, and I'm looking forward to the release of the Buffone 55 whey protein line. That's coming out in the spring. It's the only protein that guarantees mad gains in less than 24 hours. So, really looking forward to this new line of merchandise we got coming out.
That's pretty wild. That would be pretty cool, wouldn't it? Buffone 55 billboards, merchandising. Yeah, I could see that.
It's everywhere. Yeah.
All right, let's play our game here. 5 questions about the Bears, and then we'll turn it over to 5 questions about the Lions. The first one that I've got for you, the Bears broke this 5-game losing streak, and they won in a decisive fashion over the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, is this an aberration or a sign that this team maybe has the potential to compete for a playoff spot in 2018? John, you got 55 seconds, and the clock starts right now.
I think it shows us what the Bears offense is actually capable of. They ran the ball really well, and they also can have an offense that doesn't go in the tank from putrid play calling. So honestly, though, I think there's no reason to believe that with a better coaching staff and the defense healthier, maybe some upgrades at wide receiver in the offseason, that this team can't make the playoffs. They should have at least 3 to 5 more wins just this season, but because of some bad errors and some bad mistakes, they left them on the table. So the NFL is so unique in that there isn't much difference between the best team and the worst team. That's why there's always so much parity in this league. So honestly, I don't think this team is very far away. They need to fix this whole coaching staff thing. I'm staying positive, but you look into next year, you assume Trubisky's going to be better. You assume Adam Shaheen's going to be better along with Tariq Cohen. Defensive guys like Leonard Floyd are going to be back on the field, hopefully, with another year of experience under the belt to play well. And then whoever they add throughout throughout their draft picks. So I think there is hope for this team to potentially make a playoff run in 2018.
I agree with you. I'm really getting excited for the off season. Now, we've got 3 more games to play, and I love football, and I want to see those 3 games. But once the off season begins, then we start looking at the prospects and so forth. I'm really excited about what Ryan Pace could potentially do to improve this team, and of course, with hopefully a new football coach. So we'll see about that. All right, John. As you know, Draft Dr. Phil has produced 22 parody Christmas songs, most of them taking good-natured pokes at the Bears organization, the coaches, and some of the players. One song, though, he has dedicated to the prowess of running back Jordan Howard. He even endorsed the running back for MVP consideration. Now, do you think that's too lofty an accolade for Howard? And can you also just talk a little bit and characterize Howard's play now that he has 26 starts as a Chicago Bear player in 2 seasons? You are on the clock.
Well, it's hard to say that the best player on a 4-win squad should be the NFL MVP, but I will say that he is a lot better than what fans and some media types actually give him credit for. No, he's not flashy. He doesn't seem like the type that's going to light up a box score. And yes, he can't even catch a cold when it comes to his receiving abilities. But he is so effective. He reminds me a little bit of Michael Turner. Remember the underappreciated running back for the Falcons? He was a great player for a couple of years. He ran for over 1,300 yards 3 times, had 5 double-digit touchdown seasons. So Howard has 2 1,000-yard seasons so far. That's with an abbreviated rookie campaign. And he has a good chance to get double-digit touchdowns this year because he has 7 already. So if I had to compare him to something to make it more relatable, I guess Jordan Howard is the Toyota Corolla of the NFL. He's not going to turn any heads, but he is reliable, and you can count on him to get you to where you need to go. So I think it's a stretch to say that he's kind of an MVP candidate, but the Bears are certainly lucky to have him on the roster.
Oh, I sense a debate. I sense a debate between you and Draft Dr. Phil. We're going to have to arrange that one of these days. That'll be a good one. And I got to warn you, you're going to have difficulty getting a word in edgewise with
I feel certain.
Phil. All right, question number 3. Now, Mitch Trubisky, he had his best performance as a pro against the Cincinnati Bengals. He threw 25 completions, 32 attempts, 271 yards. He had a passing touchdown, a rushing touchdown. What most impressed you about Trubisky's play against the Bengals? You are on the clock.
Well, it impressed me that he completed passes to about 8 different receivers, and he was allowed to actually control an offense that looked like it belonged in the NFL. He got Adam Shaheen involved. I think we heard on the broadcast that they plan on working out together in the offseason, so it's kind of nice to see them taking the initiative there. I said last week I would unleash Trubisky, and I didn't care if he threw 5 interceptions because at least he would be throwing the ball a little bit. Well, they did unleash him to an extent, and he looked like he was on track to be a pretty good quarterback. So I didn't see much hesitation. I think he looked a little bit more comfortable, and the running game potentially benefited from the play calling not being so predictable. So most of all, I think Bears fans took a nice sigh of relief. This was a sign that the Bears just may have found their franchise quarterback, or at least some stability at the position. Even on a 4-win team, it is exciting to watch your young quarterback play well because it gives you some tangible hope for the future. And I've said this plenty of times throughout the year. How depressing would it be if we just had the season full of nothing but Mike Glennon? What was there to be looking forward to? So I like the way it's going.
That seems like such a long time ago that Mike Glennon was the starter for the Chicago Bears, but it's something that I will never forget. I think that is one of the biggest mistakes a Bears general manager has ever made. What do you think, John? Do you think that that's going to go down when we make the list of greatest flops in Bears history? You think that's going to be one of the big ones?
Oh man, you're gonna have to go through a lot to really decipher which one's on the top. But it's pretty big up there. But they did allow themselves a nice out. Yeah, they have to pay him a good amount of money, but at least they're basically out from under it within a year. So it could have been worse. They could have tied a little bit more money throughout a longer period of time. So yeah, it was bad.
Yeah, because I think next year he's due $2 million guaranteed. So that's not bad at all. So you're right. When you look at some of the other flops, there was a lot more money wasted than with Mr. Glennon. All right, moving on to question number 4. We're going at a quick clip here. John, is it a big deal, you think, that the Bears defense limited the Bengals to 234 yards of total offense, 14 first downs, and forced 2 turnovers? Or should we just step back a little bit and say, well, it's the Bengals. Come on, who cares? All the teams are going to do that against the Bengals. What are your thoughts about this Bears defense? You are on the clock.
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, you want your defense to play well against struggling teams. If they would have been gashed for big yardage like I thought they might, we'd be grilling them right now. But, Kyle Fuller bounced back in a big way. They shut down A.J. Green for the most part. The defensive line played relatively well. The Bengals had no real rushing game, even though, they were limited to just Giovanni Bernard at that point. But in a way, it is a big deal because it wasn't a big deal. They did what they were supposed to do against a team like the Bengals, who the week before put up a bunch of points against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that's a big improvement for the Bears, who perpetually cannot live up to the most moderate of expectations. So hopefully this momentum can carry into this week's game against the Lions, who don't necessarily love to run the ball, but we've seen how hard it is for the Bears to kind of keep momentum going whenever we thought that they were on the upswing, and all of a sudden it set them up for a big letdown. But yeah, this was a good sign because at least they didn't steal the headlines by playing poorly.
Yeah, I agree. We'll a little sterner test up at Ford Field, but we'll talk about that briefly. My final question for you on the Bears side of the ledger here has to do with Devin Hester, the number 23, the famous kick returner who announced his retirement this week. What are your thoughts on Devin Hester, and do you think that he is a Hall of Famer? John, you're on the clock.
Oh, man, Devin Hester was my favorite Bear throughout the mid-2000s. I bought his Super Bowl 41 jersey when I was a teenager. It was an awesome feeling when the Bears had a dominant defense and they would force a 3-and-out, and you knew the next play could go all the way because of Devin Hester, and maybe you weren't so confident in the offense led by Rex Grossman and company, but you knew at least the kickoff return or the punt return had a chance for some fireworks. For a few years, he was the best offensive player, and he didn't even play on the offense. So I rarely follow a player once they leave the Bears, but I was all in on Devin Hester his entire career. He was just a guy you wanted to see do well. 19 total return touchdowns. That's tied for the most with Deion Sanders. Hall of Fame, like I've said before when we were talking about Urlacher, has as much to do with impact on the game as it does statistics. This guy is the best returner of all time. You held your breath every time he touched the ball. So if they can put Ray Guy in for being the best punter, they certainly have to put Devin Hester in the Hall of Fame for being the best return man of all time.
Yeah, kick returners don't get a lot of respect when it comes to Hall of Fame voting, but boy, if you're going to put anybody in, it's got to be Devin Hester. I mean, one of the things that most impressed me about him is that opposing coaches had to account for him. They had to avoid kicking to him. He just made such a huge difference. Do you think that the fact that the kick return game is slowly becoming outdated in the NFL? I mean, there's some speculation that we may not be seeing kickoffs in the near future because of the safety concerns. Do you think that might have some influence on whether he is inducted into the Hall of Fame, whether yes or no?
I think the only impact it would have is that it would be a heck of a lot harder to break that record then if there's not going to be any more kickoff returns, and you got to try to get to 20 return touchdowns, and all you can do is basically do punt returns. It's going to be a lot harder to break that record. So if he is going to be on top of that list and he's going to have that many return yards, I think all it does is kind of solidify the position, because now you can't even say, well, he's good, but this person's really good too, and they have comparable stats. I think it kind of, in a way, it might even help Devin Hester because we might not see those numbers again.
John, I'm going to throw you a curveball here because there's really some interesting chatting going on in the chat room. Stacy Hefner just wrote a minute ago that Ryan Pace, while making some good moves, has kind of a smartest guy in the room vibe and not in a good way. You want to reply to Stacy's thought there?
Yeah, I mean, there's a hint of that. We saw a lot of that with Chip Kelly, where it's like everyone else is stupid, I'm smart, so get over it. Every once in a while, you think maybe when we saw that with this draft, we like, oh man, he is trying to be the smartest guy in the room, taking Trubisky, taking Adam Shaheen, who was a basketball player in the second round, reaching for a little tiny running back out of North Carolina A&T in Tariq Cohen. And like, this guy is just trying to pretend like he knows something we don't, and he's just swinging for the fences. But you know what? It worked out. So I think that he does have that little bit of that kind of a feel to him a little bit, and we might see it depending on who the next coaching hire is. But I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I always say I'm giving him 1 year. I'm giving him one more year, and if this continues, then I'm like, okay, then we got to go in a different direction. But so far, it's been okay draft-wise. Free agents, that's a different story. So, yeah, I can see why he would get that kind of a reputation.
We're going to take a deep dive into Ryan Pace's performance as general manager in one of the shows during the offseason. That a deal?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right. Well, now we got 5 questions for you about the Detroit Lions, and number 1 is when we, of course, talk about the Lions, we always begin with Matthew Stafford. Last week, he passed for 381 yards, a touchdown pass, and he led his team downfield for a Matt Prater kick to win the game. So evaluate Stafford for us. He's definitely put up Hall of Fame numbers. Last time I looked, he was rising up that chart in passing yards just past John Hadel. And is he really kind of a Hall of Fame caliber quarterback, do you think? John, you're on the clock.
Well, he is putting up big numbers, but that's also been the system he's been in for a while. I mean, he has thrown for over 4,000 yards 6 times. Probably his 7th will be this year. He's only thrown for over 30 touchdowns twice, however, and 7 times he's been in double-digit interceptions. So he's playing at a time where a lot of quarterbacks are putting up these video game-like numbers. It's not like when like Marino played, where he was it was so far and beyond everybody else that it didn't even make sense. So what will be remembered now? Most likely with these quarterbacks, it'll be postseason performance or single season records. And Stafford doesn't have either of those. He has no real playoff record to speak of. 3 appearances, no wins. He won Comeback Player of the Year in 2011, so whatever that's worth. So, yeah, the numbers are very impressive. But Hall of Fame, I don't think yet. Think of some quarterbacks that are going to be retiring in the next 5 to 7 years. Matt Ryan. He has better stats than Stafford. No rings, but he does have an MVP and played in a Super Bowl. Does he get in? Roethlisberger, similar stats, but 2 rings. Probably in. Phillip Rivers, much better stats with 8 4,000-yard seasons, 5 30-touchdown seasons, no rings. Is Phillip Rivers in? I don't know. So as far as Stafford goes, right now, I don't see it but he has plenty of time to, gain some ground.
Yep. He does. Well, and maybe one day he'll have a running game to help.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. He's throwing the ball 900 times a year. So
yeah. All right. Speaking of the running game, stop the run, stop the run, stop the run. Those are things we've heard coaches and players say for the longest time. I remember Doug Buffone always talking about stopping the run. Well, the Lions have no run game, so they won last week despite averaging fewer than 3 yards per carry. And when they beat the Bears, they rushed for only 65 yards while the Bears had 222. And the Bears lost. So should the Bears defense really change that mantra this week from stop the run to stop Stafford? John, you're on the clock.
Well, I'm pretty sure that's what every defense says, but the Lions' short passing game is basically their running game. Theo Riddick on swing passes or screen passes is kind of the run game. So maybe we don't see as much blitzing this week. Maybe the Bears drop back and hope their line gets a good enough push, or at least dares the Lions to run the ball at points. But the Lions are going to do what they do. They're going to throw the ball regardless of situation or score. As we saw before, that is kind of dangerous because even if the Bears have a lead, Detroit can score quickly enough because of the passing game. We've seen the Bears have trouble handling teams with good receiving backs. We saw it against the Saints. We saw it against the Lions the first time around. And we even saw it to an extent last week whenever Giovanni Bernard ripped off some big gains on short passes. Granted, the Bears are backing off a little bit to not give up big plays, but they still Bernard had a pretty good game receiving. I don't think they need to worry about stopping the run. They need to worry about stopping the short passes to the running backs that somehow they're completed for 3 yards, but they turn into 10 yards or 12 yards or 15-yard chunks. So I would say focus more on stopping the short passing game. And, the run, the Lions don't run. So that might take care of itself.
All right. Draft Dr. Phil is in the chat room, and he said, spoiler alert, Buffone makes 2 appearances on the Christmas CD. Your Buffone 55 show, and John Buffone is in a lyric or two. John, are you excited?
The sales just went up 200%.
Excellent. All right, we were talking about the run game. The Bears are 3-1 in games where they've rushed for 200 yards or more. That lone defeat, of course, was to the Lions. Now, over the last 5 games, the Lions have allowed 158 yards per game, 133 last week to the Bucs. You think that John Fox is maybe salivating at the thought of running the ball throughout the entire game, or you think that perhaps he is going to give Trubisky the opportunity to take advantage of a defense that is clearly going to be loaded up to stop Howard? John, you're on the clock.
Oh, man, let's hope he learned from last week. He needs to not get so excited about being one-dimensional. We saw what can happen when you let the offense be a two-way street last week. The run helped the passing game and vice versa. So trust the kid to make plays and don't get bogged down in the theory that you have to run the ball 30 times into a brick wall to win the game. We saw it backfire against Detroit the first time. They had a heck of a first quarter, and then they turned the ball over and they put the brakes on immediately and went in the tank. So, I mean, what is it? So what good is Howard having a nice stat line at the end of the game if you end up losing? So starts calling some play actions, roll out a little bit, throw everything. This is the time for learning experiences. Trubisky should be getting a full plate of options this week, and I think he's going to play better knowing that he isn't limited to handing the ball off and checking down on third down. So yes, get Adam Shaheen involved again. He can be a matchup nightmare against some of the linebackers. Use Kendall Wright over the middle again. I mean, double-digit catches last week for Kendall Wright. Come on. So, I mean, maybe we see you go up top to Inman a couple times. Make the offense excited to be an offense and make the fans excited to watch the offense. So I think you don't get bogged down that you have to run the ball into the line 30 times.
John, did you see that comment by Kendall Wright yesterday when he talked to reporters and he complained about the amount of passes being thrown? He said something to the effect that we don't need new receivers over here in Chicago. We need more opportunities to catch the ball. And I thought that was a stinging rebuke of the coaches and Dow Loggins, who a couple of times this season has gone to the podium and been critical of the wide receivers and the pass patterns that they've run. What do you think about that? Do you think that this is a team that perhaps is, at this point, sees that John Fox's tenure here is not going to last very long, so they're taking some shots at him?
Well, imagine being a wide receiver on this team right now. I mean, yeah, you're obviously not the most talented core in the NFL, but if you're there and you're thinking, why is everyone dumping on us like we're awful whenever we only get 1 or 2 balls thrown to us a game? It's like, how are we supposed to overperform if we don't have any opportunities? So absolutely, I get where Kendall Wright's coming from. I get where all of these receivers are coming from. Yeah, we're not the best group, but no one's doing us any favors by only throwing us the ball a couple times. So yeah, they should all be a little ticked off because they needed a chance to overperform, to play better than what their talent insinuates, but they're not being put in that kind of position because none of the balls are coming their way. So yeah, I get that they're probably ticked off. They don't like the offensive play calling. They don't like that the coaching staff is putting them in that position. So absolutely, if the season's winding down, get your shots in now because they're not going to be there much longer.
That's right. All right. Speaking of coaches, the fans in Detroit have the same kind of dislike of their head coach, Jim Caldwell, as Bears fans have about John Fox. Now, what do you make of Caldwell? He's taken his team to the playoffs 2 out of 3 seasons, and they're contending again. You think the Lions fans should chill out a little, or do they know better? You're on the clock.
Oh, man, this reminds me a little bit of when Lovie Smith was in Chicago. They got him to the playoffs a few times, got him to a Super Bowl, missed out with some decent teams, though. So in Lovie's case, I think fans thought that he was wasting a dominant defense, and maybe Lions fans think that Caldwell isn't getting the most out of the talent in Detroit. So Bears fans were happy when Lovie left, and all of a sudden, this was going to be a Super Bowl contender under the new regime. Remember that? We were all excited. Lovie's gone. No more conservative and wasting offensive talent. Well, my advice to Lions fans, however, be careful what you wish for. A new coach does not automatically mean a better coach. So whenever Lovey leaves, in comes Trestman, and we saw how everything went to hell. And then they're like, okay, we got to get rid of this guy. We're super juiced for John Fox, though. He took two teams to the Super Bowl. Okay, well, new coach. Things are going to get better. Well, is it? Ask Cleveland if new means better. Getting a new coach often causes a fan base to celebrate because they believe it's a new era and everything is going to be better. But it's actually a time where you should be scared. You should be petrified because you don't know if your new coach is going to be better. And if he's not, you have another 2 to 4 years of frustration coming. Now, I'm not saying that coaches don't deserve to be fired, and I think John Fox should absolutely be gone. But I think it's a time to also be a little bit. Just afraid a little bit because you don't know if this new guy is going to take you to where you want. You think he is, you hope he does, but if not, you got 2 to 4 more years of saying, oh man, now this guy needs to go. So just pump the brakes a little bit if you're a Detroit fan because you've been to the playoffs.
Yeah, you know what, John, I think you make a really valid point. I think that there are as many quality NFL head coaches are out there as there are quality quarterbacks. I don't know if there are 32, really capable guys that can step into any franchise and immediately help that team, a losing team, turn the program around. I think it's a very, very difficult job. You need great leadership skills. You need to be innovative because the game changes and you got to keep up with the competition and so forth. It's tough to find the right guy. So hopefully Ryan Pace has better luck than he did the first time around. All right, our final question here before we get to your prediction. Last week, we asked you to do a position-by-position breakdown of the Bears and their opponent, and it was fun seeing you trying to fit 5 minutes of analysis into 55 seconds. So I'm going to ask you to do it again in 55 seconds, John. Can you please break down this matchup between the Lions and Chicago Bears? John, you're on the clock, and don't worry, I won't hold you to it.
Okay, here we go. Quarterback, you have to give the edge to Stafford. He's the more polished quarterback at this point. He's putting up huge numbers. He's been doing it for years. Give Mitch time. I think he surpasses what Stafford can do. But right now, you got to give the nod to the Detroit there. Running back, all Bears. The Lions have no one close to the efficiency of Jordan Howard or the unique talents of Tariq Cohen. I know they got Amir Abdullah, they got Theo Riddick, but all Bears all the time when it comes to running backs. Wide receiver, the Bears took a step forward last week, but when you have Golden Tate, who was a monster after the catch, and guys like Marvin Jones, you're going to get the edge over the lesser talented Bears wide receiving core. So that one goes to Detroit. Let's go over the defense. The Lions are 27th in total defense, which they give up a ton of yards on the ground. The Bears defense looked much better last week. Give me the Bears defense when it comes down to these two. So that we got 2-2 right now. Of course, the tiebreaker once again comes down to special teams. The Bears suck. So the Lions have a reliable kicker in Matt Prater. They have a good returner in Jamal Agnew. The edge goes to the Detroit Lions when it comes to that. So I have 3-2 breaking down the two teams. Tail of the tape, 3-2 in favor of the Lions.
Wow, you did it!
I did
Unbelievable.
it. I practiced.
So what does that mean in terms of prediction, John? Why don't you give us your prediction and then take our show to the close?
All right. Honestly, I like the Bears to show some spunk in this game. I don't love that it's in Detroit. I don't love that it's going to be on a shortened week on the road. I don't like that I feel good about the Bears in this game. Every time this happens, they fall flat. Perhaps I own the kiss of death when it comes to predicting Bears games. So I'm gonna go with a pick of logic and not with heart this week, and that tells me that the Bears will somehow underperform in a crucial situation. They're going to have every opportunity to win this game, but I have a feeling they're going to fall flat somewhere. The Lions, I predict, will win this game 27-23. I hope I'm wrong, but I have them losing by 4 on the road in Detroit. And before we close out the show, I just want to remind you that the Bears Barroom offers a variety of different shows, and to subscribe to the Bears Barroom Radio Network, the easiest way is to go to Podbean and just search in Bears Barroom, and we are going to pop up. From there, you can have it downloaded to any of your podcast deliveries, and you can also check us out on YouTube, where we offer up a bunch of analysis on Bears players. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Bears Barroom. You can find me at JD Buffone. And as you may know, the BearsBarroom.com has been unwrapping a new Christmas parody song every day since December 4th, and will continue to do so through Christmas Eve day. And wouldn't it be nice to have all 22 songs on one CD? Well, Keep listening to the infomercial after the show for a fun explanation on how to enter and win a copy of this limited edition. The 5-minute infomercial shares portions of 7 of the 22 songs, but please be aware that towards the end of the infomercial, there is a song that contains a word not suitable for work. Bears on Tap is on hiatus until December 30th, but I hope you think this show is worthy of a second listen. Please share, and if you are on iTunes, please leave us a favorable review. But that will do it for this edition of Buffone 55. Thank you for tuning in. Feel free to listen to it over and over and over again. But until next time, I'm John Buffone. We'll see you next week.
Cheers, Bears fans! Winter holidays are upon us, and you know what that means. No playoffs for Bears fans. It's another sit by the fireplace and contemplate burning all of your Bears paraphernalia in the fire time. And what better way to spend that time than by listening to Draft Dr. Phil's collection of Bears Christmas songs and his newest CD, A Truthful Special Christmas. You'll hear classics like I Hate John Fox.
I hate John Fox, I hate John Fox, fire John Fox today. Mumbling and bumbling and throwing timeouts away. Refs are flagging, no challenge having, all ain't dandy and bright. So hang the loss and play conservative if I Coach Fox tonight.
Ho, 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 I hate him too, Draft Dr. Phil, but I love Mikey the Red-Faced Giraffe.
Then one epic with Thursday Eve, Glennon took a snap. It hit him in the knees and went flying to the pack, intercepted.
Have yourself some steak and whiskey and reflect back on all of 2017's stupid Dowell Loggins play calls with Phil's Little Dumber Boy.
Oh, you call a play that's dumber than dumb. 3rd down and 3 to go, he's dumber than dumb.
While you're wrapping up those clearance sales Kevin White jerseys, listen to this old, but be careful with those scissors.
I'm dreaming of a Kevin White comeback to the whiteout we all know, where he went up for catches and caught errant passes. Didn't matter if they were high or low.
Put away that old Super Bowl Shuffle VHS tape and blast this new Draft Dr. Phil ditty, Chicago Christmas. Cheers, Bears fans!
Chicago Christmas time is near. Time for snow, chicks, wind, and beer. Bears been bad, they cannot win. Fire Fox, so we're good again.
How do you get by another Christmas of watching meaningless playoff games? You blame the man at the top, Ted Phillips.
You're a mean one, Ted Phillips. You really are a heel. You're as sneaky as a fox. You're as charming as an eel, Ted Phillips. You're a guy who wants money over wins on the field.
Because they're not for sale, there's only one way to get your hands on Draft Dr. Phil's A Truthful Special Christmas. That's by entering our sweepstakes giveaway. Head over to the front page of BearsBarroom.com or our Twitter page at Bears Barroom for the details on how to win. But you better hurry, they're going fast. There's only 32 left. Wait a minute, that's how many years ago the Bears last won a Super Bowl.
Hell, this hole is gonna fall down. Oh yeah. Hell, this hole is gonna fall down. Yeah. Bears Barroom will tear that fucker down.
BearsBarroom.com. That's the website to visit for information on how to enter the sweepstakes to win a limited edition of Draft Dr. Phil's A Truthful Special Christmas. Enter now to win. why spend another Christmas season bitching and moaning about the Bears? Instead, why don't you join us and sing it?
This all is gonna fall down. Bears Barroom will tear that fucker down. This all is gonna fall down.